And the team, obviously, we did a deep dive on the Jets trading and the Cowboys acquiring and the Colts acquiring. The team that everybody reached out to you throughout this entire week's process of trades or trades that didn't go down, that everybody was curious about. What's that team, Tom?
I would say that the things that stood out to people within the league were the relative inactivity by certain teams. The Titans, had clearly made a couple of trades. They traded Draymond Jones. It seemed like they got good value out of that trade. They'd previously traded Jarvis Brownlee, but they never, got anything really. It didn't seem like close with Calvin Ridley, who, even though he's 31, for a third-round pick where they would have paid down the money, I personally just thought that more might happen there. So like those big trades with like their, the running backs or the receivers, they never had anything. Trey Hendrickson, with the Bengals, clearly they're in a mode of, hey, our defense is terrible, but also it was even more terrible without Trey Hendrickson the past couple of weeks. We're still scoring 40 points a game. We feel like getting him back, and we'll see because he's been hurt. That's going to allow us to take steps forward. The Saints obviously moved Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks. They kind of came off their price a little bit. It ended up being a 4th and 5th round pick. I think that for what Seattle needs and the fact that he has experience in Clint Kubiak's offense, it's a great move. But the Saints, with one of the older, more expensive rosters in the league, with one win, to not trade more guys, that definitely jumped out at some people. And then the Raiders are in another tough spot here because, this was not supposed to be a terrible season in Las Vegas. They trade Jacoby Myers because the Jaguars ultimately stepped up with 4th and 6th round picks. But this was not slash and burn. I told you a couple weeks ago, they'd come to Max Crosby and said, whatever the rumors are, this is not happening. Nothing ever progressed on that front. There's some of those teams that decided to just kind of stand pat with where they were. It'll be interesting to see, in hindsight now, how did some of those decisions play out? Are some of those core players that they didn't move on from still a member of those teams as we get to 2026? In the case of Trey Hendrickson, he's, in the last year of his deal, they could tag him, but it would be close to $40 million in order to do that. Will they look back and regret not taking, let's say, a 3rd-round pick for Trey Hendrickson? Time will tell, but the Bengals, as they often do, are still very much playing for 2025.
But in the 90 seconds I have left, what about the other side of it? People calling you up saying, I can't believe these teams that are in contention did not make a move. There's a bunch of other teams at the top that the Eagles typically, as we saw, went ahead and made the moves, and other teams did not. Anybody stand out there, Tom?
Well, I'd go back to, again, what Brandon Beane talked about yesterday with the Bills. And I can tell you that they were very active. They were making a lot of calls, whether it was to fortify the defense, whether it was to find another wide receiver. It's just sometimes you get outbid on guys, and sometimes, the prices are just too high out there in the marketplace. But certainly that was not for a lack of trying on their part. The Packers, had kind of already shot their bullet with Micah Parsons in that trade. I didn't anticipate that they were going to go out, make big swing moves. Even the Steelers, they were one of the most rumored teams. They had multiple deals that I thought had a possibility of getting done on wide receivers. It just didn't work out, whether teams decided to keep those players or traded them to somebody else. So in a lot of cases, it was not so much team standing pat as much as it was the prices were too high or they got outbid. That happens a lot, Rich. Even when, some of these deals, even on Quinn and Williams, I can tell you there were multiple other contenders that were involved in the Quinn and Williams trade. The Cowboys were the one that stepped up with a 1st and a 2nd round pick, as well as a player in Mozzie Smith who could help them, potentially another flyer, get them through this season and maybe develops as a former 1st round pick into a good player. The Cowboys had the high offer. There's a deadline on this thing, and sometimes it's all a matter of who's got that high offer when it comes down to decision time.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.